We're going to start today with this continued fiasco involving the January 6th Trump riot commission. It is absolutely stunning what is going on and what has happened over the last 24 hours, although not altogether surprising if you've been following the Republican Party for the last several years. So yesterday, I told you on the show that House Minority Leader Republican Kevin McCarthy had selected 5 Republicans to be on the new version of the January 6th Commission, which will investigate what the hell happened on January 6th. Now, remember, this commission is instead of the one that was proposed originally months ago, which Republicans said absolutely no to. And as I pointed out yesterday, at least 2 of the 5 people selected by Kevin McCarthy, Congressman Jim Jordan and Congressman Jim Banks, are effectively insurrectionists. Now, what I mean by that is they weren't saying go to the Capitol right now on January 6th, but they were participants in the ginning up of doubt about the election results in the months leading up to January 6th, which had people so fired up and almost like in a feverish state of arousal where they just went to the Capitol and did the riots and attempted the insurrection on January 6th. So effectively, you were going to have inciters investigating the insurrection that they incited. Now, good for her, Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi decided to bar Jim Jordan and Jim Banks from being on the commission. And considering that the only reason that Jim Jordan and Jim Banks were going to be there would be to derail the investigation, to distract from the substance, and to talk about other things like the George Floyd protests of a year before, or whatever the case may be, I think it's great that Nancy Pelosi did this. Now, I know there are people who are going to say, well, Nancy Pelosi is terrible. Whatever your opinion of Nancy Pelosi, this decision I agree with. They were putting inciters on the panel to investigate what they incited. It's absolutely crazy. The Associated Press reporting, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi rejected 2 Republicans selected by Kevin McCarthy. McCarthy said the Republican Party won't participate in the investigation if Democrats won't accept the members he appointed. Pelosi cited the integrity of the probe in refusing to accept the appointments of Jim Banks, picked by McCarthy to be the top Republican on the panel, or Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan. The 2 men are outspoken allies of Trump, whose supporters laid siege to the Capitol that day and interrupted the certification of Joe Biden's win. Both of them voted to overturn the election results in the hours after the siege. Not a trivial detail. Democrats have said the investigation will go on either way. Pelosi said she spoke to McCarthy and told him she would be rejecting the 2 names. Okay, good. So what do Republicans now do? They again frame themselves as the victims. Let's take a look at a press conference that Kevin McCarthy did, and let's listen, and then we will discuss.
We will run our own investigation.
Right.
We have law enforcement, we have military, we have doctors, we have people from all walks of life. They want to know the answer. The American people deserve that. They don't deserve politics. They don't deserve destroying the institution. No committee in Congress will work if one person is picking all who can serve.
Now, of course, it's not true that one person is picking all who can serve. And it's not true that it is that it's exclusively a Democratic commission. 3 of the 5 people that Kevin McCarthy selected, Nancy Pelosi has no problem with. Nancy Pelosi has also selected a Republican in Liz Cheney to be on the committee so that it would be bipartisan, even with Kevin McCarthy pulling everybody. But Liz Cheney is the wrong type of Republican. And we'll get back to Liz Cheney momentarily. But the most important thing to remember is that the initial structure of this investigation that was proposed months ago was by definition bipartisan, and Republicans rejected it. The initial setup was going to be 10 members, Democrats choose 5, Republicans choose 5. The Democratic member would be the chair, Republican member would be the vice chair, and every subpoena sent out to a witness would have to be signed off on by both the Democratic chair and the Republican vice chair. Republicans rejected that entire framework. And we're going to get to here why that was and the revisionist history around that. Listen to this.
Mr. Leader, you're complaining that you don't have a bipartisan opportunity here to investigate January 6th, but you stood in the way of a bipartisan commission that was being made up of independent members.
Right.
No, I
equal
didn't.
number of Republicans and
Yes, you
Democrats.
did.
Your conference voted against that. At least a majority of your conference voted against it, and it was blocked in the Senate. Why did you not allow that to go forward?
Listen to this.
What you say you want is a bipartisan investigation into what happened on January 6th.
For the same politics Pelosi played then. At the same time, when she used the scope of that. Remember how long it took? On January 13th, Rodney Davis and myself both requested a 9/11 commission. Even those who ran the 9/11 commission criticized Nancy Pelosi for what she wanted to do. We had Officer Evans killed on Good Friday, but she said you couldn't look at that. If you study the 9/11 commission, they didn't study what happened on just September 11th. They studied what built up to it. But she said, no, you could not do that.
Now, this is maybe the most deceptive framing of what happened. Understand that what Republicans wanted to do when the commission was initially discussed months ago, Republicans said, we want to study the context. But what was the context Republicans wanted to study? Republicans wanted to include in a January 6th commission the protests during the summer of 2020 over police brutality and the killing of George Floyd. That's what they wanted to make the January 6th commission about, which was going to make it a complete and total distraction. Republicans wanted to include in that January 6th commission the killing of the shooting of Steve Scalise in 2017. Why? Because they wanted to make the entire thing about, here are all these different instances of people going too far, but mostly it's Democrats and people on the left going too far. Nothing to do whatsoever with the January 6th commission and the context that Republicans wanted to include in the January 6th commission was a defense of the claim that the election was not really won by Joe Biden. Why? Because if Republicans in the January 6th commission could make the case that the rioters were right to be upset about the election results because it really was stolen by Joe Biden, it would, in a sense, justify their violent actions on January 6th. And Nancy Pelosi rightly said, we're not going to do that. That's what Kevin McCarthy is talking about, that Nancy Pelosi rejected. It's completely dishonest. And now I don't know what's going to happen. McCarthy's saying they're just going to do their own commission. OK. Liz Cheney, by the way, I don't want to rehabilitate Liz Cheney's image. As I've said before, Liz Cheney's a horrible Republican who voted with Trump like 90% of the time. She just disagreed on this one thing. Here is Liz Cheney saying, actually, the two people Pelosi is not allowing on the commission, their behavior was disgraceful. She's right not to allow them.
There are 3 members that the minority leader proposed that the speaker did not object to. She has objected to 2 members, and the rhetoric around this from the minority leader and from those 2 members has been disgraceful.
So Liz Cheney, because of those comments, being called a Republican in name only, she's not really a Republican. How can she say that? Asked again, she says, I agree with what Nancy Pelosi decided.
Did you personally urge the speaker to take this step?
I agree with what the speaker has done.
And then also asked about the specifics of why she thinks these two shouldn't be on the commission. She said the following.
At every opportunity, the minority leader has attempted to prevent the American people from understanding what happened, to block this investigation.
Right.
Today, the speaker objected to 2 Republican members. She accepted 3 others. She objected to 2, one of whom may well be a material witness to events.
This is a key thing. The Republicans want investigators who are really more witnesses and participants in what took place.
It led to that day,
right.
It led to January 6th. The other who disqualified himself by his comments in particular over the last 24 hours, demonstrating that he is not taking this seriously.
So Liz Cheney is on the same page as Nancy Pelosi. Liz Cheney is no great hero. She's a Republican who agrees with Trump on just about everything. But on this issue, she is actually seemingly doing what she believes is right. So that's the latest with the commission, which is just becoming a complete joke of a situation thanks to Republicans. Let's now talk a little bit about how Republicans are reacting in the aftermath of this commission falling apart from the standpoint of it actually being something Republicans will participate in meaningfully. One of our sponsors is Rise, the science-based app that makes it easy to improve your sleep and daily energy. I have struggled with sleep at times in my life. I've tried many different things, and Rise has been really useful. It tracks your sleep debt, which is how much sleep you essentially owe your body, tracks your general rhythms, helps you understand your daytime energy levels. And Rise can improve your sleep and energy by giving you personalized feedback about your sleep metrics, when you should go to bed, when you should wake up, in terms of optimizing your personal rest. It can even tell you things like how long should you expect to be groggy in the morning based on when you wake up. You can make science-based improvements to 16 different habits that will make you feel more rested every day. And most Rise users start feeling that way in the first 5 days, including me. And Rise is still helping me every day. It's great. It's based on real sleep science. Very few things are as important as improving your sleep. Go to risescience.com/Pacman to try Rise free for a week. The link is underneath this video.